Hello and welcome. This is Keith Barrett, an intuitive evolutionary astrologer. And on this episode, I'm going to be discussing the energies that are coming up here in the month of September. So, as of me recording this, which is August 31st, here in the Pacific Northwest, we are still under the influence of that super blue full moon in the sign of Pisces. So, September I see as a continuation of that energy. So I did a YouTube video to discuss what I was seeing for that full moon, which I will have a link to that in the description box below. This month's going to be very similar. There's going to be some tweaks and adjustments, and there's going to be some subtle differences, but that energetic read, or the read that I did, is very much going to continue through the month of September. And so just looking at things from a more higher perspective, the 50,000 foot view, there's going to be a harmonious aspect between the Sun and Mercury and Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus. So we're going to have the Sun, which is going to be in Virgo up until the 22nd when it moves into Libra. And then we have Mercury, which is coming out of retrograde on the 15th. But will stay in the sign of Virgo for the entire month. So there's that energetic expression, which I feel is, again, not to keep beating a dead horse here, but a continuation of the energy of this Pisces full moon. So we have the archetypes of Virgo, we have Libra, we have Taurus, we have Uranus/Aquarius, we have Jupiter/Pisces Sagittarius. All of those archetypes are at play, but they're harmonious. So there's what I'm getting with this energy is communication, trying to figure things out, strategizing, making adjustments, or I would say not so much making adjustments, maybe minor adjustments, but it's more so what adjustments do I feel need to be made, or what has been shown to me over the last few months where I'm very much aware that there needs to be some changes now that need to come to the surface that I need to execute on. And maybe I don't execute on them now during this month, but I'm very much aware that they need to change. So the other major influence that I see here, aside from the Sun and Mercury being in a very easy flowing, good aspect to Uranus and Jupiter and Taurus, is Venus towards the middle of the month as it comes out of retrograde. Here it's coming out of retrograde September 3rd. It's going to be in a tension aspect to that Jupiter and Uranus. So what I'm getting here is, the free-flowing energy that I see with the Sun and Mercury, but now we have Venus, which starts heading direct again, and there's this tension which becomes more acute at the middle of the month, where I need to make changes, and they are probably going to be changes that are going to affect my stability, or I need to make changes to enhance my stability, or I've been too attached to things, to people, to circumstances, to ways of thinking that no longer serve me. Very much aware of it. Yeah, maybe I've held on to it a little bit too long. I'm very much aware at this period of time, certainly towards the middle of September, things need to change. And so depending on where you're at, depends on your natal chart. Are you going to make the changes now? For most people, I feel subtle changes, tweaks and adjustments, similar to what I talked about in the Pisces video. About, like I used the example, I think, of being in a relationship or being in close proximity to somebody, and you feel like maybe that influence is not as good as it used to be, or is affecting you in some way, in a way that makes you feel it doesn't feel good to you at some level. And so you decide, well, I usually spend 3 hours a day with that person, but now I'm going to change things around and I'm going to spend an hour or an hour and a half with them. How do I feel? Does that feel different? Do I feel better? Do I feel worse? What is that showing me? So something along the lines of that, little tweaks and adjustments. And that could be, I'm using the example of relationships, but that could certainly be a project you're working on at work. It could be the work environment in general, you name it. But if you think of the archetypes there, you have Venus in Leo, which Venus in Leo needs to shine. So think of you needing to shine, needing to express your creativity, need to do you. And it's in a square pattern, so it's in a tension aspect to Uranus and Jupiter and Taurus. Well, Venus rules Taurus. So that's where I'm getting something that you've been attached to has to change. So it's not going to be easy. And that's where the tension aspect comes in. It's an aspect that says, hey, yeah, something's not working here. So that means we need you to change it. There needs to be some kind of adjustments that are made. And so that's the overarching energy that I see here in September. So there is going to be this easy flowing energy in the first part of the month, the latter part of the month, but I feel like there's this underlying tension that creeps up and becomes most acute in the middle of the month. So dropping back a little bit to get into some more of the details. So I mentioned Venus starts going direct on September 3rd, but when a planet goes direct, it's not just full steam ahead. It still has its pre-shadow period that it goes through. And so I like to classify this pre-shadow period as integration. So anything that's happened for you between July 23rd and now, so July 23rd marked when Venus went retrograde. It comes out September 3rd, and it'll be in its integration period or post-shadow phase from September 3rd through October 7th. So anything that's changed, any awarenesses that have come to you, any relationship shifts from July 23rd through September 3rd, what have we learned? This is the integration period between September 3rd and the 7th. And it's also, if there were any changes that took place, I need to be able to integrate those before I move forward. What does it mean for me? How do I reorient myself? What can I take from that experience? What are the lessons to be learned? Or simply for there to be time, to allow yourself time into October before you actually maybe make a solid decision on something that changed, or you use this time period to journal, to understand things a little bit better, certainly with all this Virgo energy. So it's an integration period, so it's not full steam ahead. The other thing is Jupiter goes retrograde on September 4th. So Jupiter in that sign of Taurus goes retrograde, and so retrograde always turns the energy back inward and says, okay, how do I understand things from a different perspective? And Jupiter is the expander. And so if you think of that symbolism in the sign of Taurus, there's been expansion potentially that has taken place for you over the year with Jupiter being direct. Now with it going into retrograde, it's like Jupiter is it's the symbol of intuition. It's the symbol of getting downloads. It's the symbol of working through stuff so that you can gain more of yourself. And so this time frame with Jupiter going retrograde, and it will be retrograde from September 4th through December 31st, so all the way through till the end of the year, this is going to be a period of how do I reorient myself now that I have more awareness. Then on September 14th, we have a new moon at 21 degrees, 58 minutes of Virgo. So again, more of the Virgo energy, but it's a new moon, so it's seed energy. And I'm sure I'm going to do another video to dig into that energy a little bit more, but I just wanted to list it here. Then on the 15th of September, we have Mercury moving out of retrograde. But again, there's a post-shadow period. So from September 15th through the 30th will be Mercury's post-shadow period. So again, it's integration with Mercury and Virgo. It's the details. It's the analytical mind. It's the planning. It's the decisions. It's the subtle tweaks and the adjustments and focusing on the details. And so anything that you've been considering, any ideas that you've been getting, this is a time period from the 15th through the end of the month to make certain tweaks or adjustments. And certainly with the sun, which is going to be moving into Libra on September 22nd, which marks the beginning of fall in the northern hemisphere and marks the beginning of spring in the southern hemisphere, moving in the sign of Libra, that may mean collaborating with other people. It could mean connecting with other people. It could mean making adjustments within existing relationships. So I can certainly see that coming in to play towards the end of the month, or let's say the second half of September. And then at the end of the month, we have the full moon in the sign of Aries at 6 degrees Aries on September 29th. So full moon in Aries, something is coming to the surface that has an Aries quality to it. And again, I will do another video around that time period to focus more on what does that mean? What is the energy that I'm picking up for with that symbolism? And so that'll be covered at another date. I do see there being a lot of movement in terms of relationships, especially with the sun going into Libra, the nodes which shifted into Aries and Libra. So there's going to be a consistent underlying energetic expression from now all the way through the beginning of 2025 in that Aries and Libra axis. So what adds to that here in September is Mars at the end of August moved into Libra. So Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, is now in Libra. So that's really focusing that energy on relationships. What energies feel good for you? What energies maybe don't feel good to you? What energies come into your awareness where you collaborate with people or you form relationships? And so relationships are always the key to life in general. So, I mean, this isn't something I'm stating something that is out of the ordinary, or people deal with relationship and the dynamics within relationships for their entire life. So this isn't anything new, but certainly from an energetic standpoint in September, there is the spotlight more so on it, so that if whatever way you oriented yourself in relationships up to this point in time, there's going to be changes, there's going to be shifts, there's going to be new people coming in, people leaving, and it's all focused around the North Node in Aries, which the North Node in Aries is, I need absolute freedom to be able to express, to be able to take the actions that I feel are necessary for me. Period. And so when that comes to relationships, where are you potentially not allowing all of yourself to come through because of relationships? Where are you maybe holding yourself back because you are not forming relationships? Can be an expression of this energy. It's all going to be focused around, what do you, at this point in time, need to express, and how can you surround yourself with people that are supportive of that? That can be teachers, that can be guides, that could be people that you just feel good to be around. It could be people that maybe you've hung around with and you've had long-standing relationships with that it's no longer working. Things bubble to the surface. Projections start taking place, triggers start taking place, and you realize, I need to make a change here. This is no longer supportive. And maybe I have some beliefs about relationships that maybe because it's family, or maybe because I've invested in this relationship, maybe it's a marriage, maybe it's a partnership, that I need to stick it out. We've made a commitment here. We need to just suck it up and do it. And at some point in time, if that's not honoring all of who you are, there's going to be a shift. Either it gets repressed, or there's going to be a shift, or both. Usually when you repress it, it will either come out in distorted ways or there will be an external shift which will force the change. So that's a big focus here in September. And I really feel like I said, with the nodes going into Aries and Libra, it's going to continue. It's going to be this underlying energy that we feel throughout all of these energy reads moving forward. The other thing I was getting here in September, just peeling back a little bit and looking beyond September, I feel September, October, November, December are laying a foundation. Nothing is yet set in stone, which is it's actually a tarot card in the Moonology deck that I have that just popped into my brain. So nothing is yet set in stone is kind of the energetic expression for the remainder of the year. So there's going to be the Virgo energy, the tweaks, the adjustments, the trying to figure things out, maybe feeling like you don't really have firm footing and you're not sure what direction to go in. And so there may be some uncertainty, but this is kind of like a proofing period or an adjustment period or bringing things to the surface so that this foundation that you're laying is going to be one that's solid, that will prepare you for the changes that are going to be coming up next year. Because in astrology symbolism, we have the sign of Pluto, which is going to be heading into Aquarius in 2025. So it stepped in there briefly in the summer of this year. It retrogrades back into Capricorn, which is where it's at now. It will move back into Aquarius in January of next year. I see when Pluto moves back into Aquarius, there are going to be fundamental changes within society, within our systems that we're connected to. And so this time period, now wrapping up the end of 2023, is really figuring out what we need individually to build for us a strong foundation so that when those changes take place within our environments or within society in general, starting in January of next year, we are prepared. We have a strong foundation. We know who we are. We know what we need. We know what situations we need to navigate to in order to express ourselves in the most unique way possible. So think of this energy read, think of September as it's okay, is what comes to me. Meaning, if you can't quite figure it out or you're not quite getting the traction that you feel you should be at this period of time, or you're not quite sure what tweaks and adjustments to make, just allow time to help you, which goes back to that reading I did with the full moon in Pisces, where that full moon was conjunct Saturn, which Saturn, one of the symbols of Saturn for me, is divine timing. Can you allow time to show you the way? If you're confused, state and understand within yourself or to other people that, hey, I'm confused. I'm not quite sure yet, so I need to give it time. And in time, you'll know that the answers will become apparent, and the time to take action will also become known. So I would say to keep that in mind here and for the month of September as well, is that things are changing, things are shifting. Might be subtle, it might be more overt. It really depends on you and where you are in your journey. The other thing is, if you are familiar with your chart, if you're more like astrology focused, and let's say you have a chart that's a retrograde chart. And what I mean by that is either the ruler of your ascendant is retrograde, or you have 4 or more planets natally that are retrograde. With all of this retrograde planets right now that we're dealing with, right now we have 5 planets in retrograde plus Chiron. If you are somebody that has a retrograde chart, you may see a lot of external changes. There may be real tangible changes that start taking place for you from now until the end of the year. If you have a chart that's more direct, which means you have 2 or 3 retrograde planets, the ruler of your ascendant is not retrograde, it's more of a direct chart, then this would be more of a time frame where there's subtle tweaks and adjustments, but maybe there aren't the wholesale changes that take place, or maybe there's one wholesale change that makes place, and then it's like a time of integration to settle, to figure things out, to get familiar with the new changes that were put into place. But it's not going to be like one change after another and continual adjustments that are more obvious than the subtle energies. So with any energy read, it always correlates to your natal chart. So it really depends on your natal chart. But I think that's all that I had to bring through here for September. Hopefully this information is helpful. I certainly appreciate your energy and for checking this out. And we will talk again in another video or podcast. Thanks.